they were going to do. I don't know if there are any Americans in the audience, and if there are, whether you agree with me or not, I don't know. And maybe you'll see me afterwards and we can discuss it. But Americans like winning, and good on them. They're great people. And they make good films, and good on them. And they spend the money, and they spend it not necessarily the way we'd all agree, because why keep fleets of nuclear bombs up in the air? I don't know. It's just the way they do it. So yeah, there was money being spent.
Okay. Over at the back, Piers.
Marcus, how do you find that skeptics actually refuse something really obvious from the photographs? I mean, there must be people who are trying to write this stuff off. I mean, how do they do it? How do they explain the way that,
they tend to avoid discussing the photographs. I've yet to meet a skeptic. I use a skeptic to mean somebody who thinks NASA tells the truth. And when I've appeared on a couple of TV programs, and the people who always will start off by being extremely skeptical, oh, who the hell does he think he is? And usually turn around other camera crews, because they are photographers. They are used to looking at two-dimensional images. That's their job. The skeptics, for want of a better word, are usually astronomers or university lecturers. They're not photographers. As I say, I've yet to meet a photographer who, when if they've not come across the subject before and you discuss it, they say, yeah, I understand what you're saying, I see where you're coming from, yeah, I agree with that. Of course you've got to bracket a photograph. If you've gone to a place you've never been to before, you have got an exposure meter, of course you've got to do it. I mean, how ridiculous not to? Where did they film this? In a studio or somewhere? It's the only place you can get controlled conditions. Yeah, it was all done in a studio. These are the photographers. Now, the skeptics, the Phil Platts of this world, he's, I think, a philosophy professor in Sonoma University in California. Go to his website, badastronomy.com. That's where he'll tell you all about how bad people like us are. Same with many of the other ones. Red Zero is the other website which will refute all this, but they're not photographers. You come across a photographer who's looked at it, and David Percy is a photographer. And the detail that he goes into is remarkable, and it's never been refuted. The photographic evidence has never been refuted. So the circular argument which says, well, of course we got to the moon, we got the pictures to prove it, doesn't actually stand up to very much scrutiny. Does that answer the question?
Kind of. I mean, you find that people tend to throw away, they tend not to look at the specifics, and instead tend to say, well, how did they get the secret, like try and come different arguments. I talk to people and they'll say that, they'll say, well, they couldn't possibly have done that because it's on this.
They do try to excuse it, yes. But the first question is somebody starts to have a bit of an argument with me, and they say, are you a photographer? Do you understand cameras? Have you used a Hasselblad? And invariably they haven't, because Hasselblads are quite rare cameras. They're difficult to use. And you say, well, this is your mission, should you choose to accept it. You must go somewhere you've never been before, where the light conditions are unlike anything you've ever been used to. You must wear a spacesuit. You are allowed a camera with very poor, very high quality film, very poor exposure latitude. You've got no viewfinder, got no exposure meter. You've got to control things manually. You're not allowed to cut any heads off, and you've got to get every photograph perfect. Could you do it? And they'll say, I could do about 50%, yeah. I said, no, you've got to do 100%. No, I couldn't do it. So I'm sorry, I can't go along with the photographs as being a record of Apollo.
So there isn't one bad NASA photo, not one bad one?
There are, they call them inadvertent shutter releases. And immediately following the famous Man on the Moon photograph, which happens to be numbered 5903, 5904 is a perfectly well exposed picture of Aldrin's backpack. But it doesn't mean anything because it's far too close. It's out of focus. That's an inadvertent shutter release. So of the 121 images taken on Apollo 11, I would say there's about maybe half a dozen which could be considered wrong, badly exposed. But it's the framing of them that's so extraordinary.
Could we just take a quick straw poll here, because this will be really interesting. How many people, hands up, believe absolutely the official record that we went to the moon, the photographs are genuine? Hands up, everybody who completely is confident about that. Okay. How many people believe we didn't go to the moon and that they fabricated all of the evidence? And how many people believe that maybe, at the very least, we haven't seen the whole truth of this? That kind of sums it up, really. Yep. We'll take one more question because we have to close. This is tricky. In fairness, this gentleman here has been waiting for a long time. I'm going to go with you.
Yes, I appreciate your expertise publicly on this, but my big worry is in the computer. Because I remember being taken to a money lender's before in 1960, and the computer was as big as this room, and they're very proud of it, the two of them. So they've gone from something that big. I mean, I don't know how big the old door computers were for you. Quite small, but supposedly, but that's a huge leap from when the chips are there, for example.
47.
Oh, right, so they have those.
The
Well, that's it's strange. This is not for commercial use, like everything else.
Can you use one?
Yeah. Do I understand the question? It says that computers didn't develop soon enough to be able to manipulate what I'm saying may be.
All those the mathematics and all the stuff that going through space and it's a pretty complicated thing. And I'm just worried. I can't see how the huge leap in such a short time.
There was a remarkable amount of development going on at the time. Don't forget there's a war going on at the same time, which cross-fertilizes. One of the major problems I had was with, if this was all fabricated, we're talking 32,000 still photographs, we're talking several hundred hours of film and TV, we're talking many, many different sets. Could they have done it in the time? Because it all had to be done at a certain time. And the answer is basically yes, it wasn't that difficult. You take one photograph, you take 100, and if you go through the images, they're just duplicates, one after the other, very, very slightly different position. That's the plausibility threshold I mentioned. It's very hard to get over that. How could they do it, and how could I have been taken in by something as obvious as this? Maybe you don't think it's obvious. Maybe you think that I'm talking complete nonsense, and if so, I'd love to hear about it, because I've got other things to do. It'd be nice to try a few of them. But I keep coming back to this subject. And, I mean, that's one of the points. How did they do it? I don't know all the answers. I wish I did.
We've got to close. Well, I think the straw poll really says it all, that it's obvious we don't know the whole truth of this. And I hope, and I'm sure, that you will agree that Marcus constellated at least a lot of the arguments, and very well. So thank you for coming. If you want to come to future meetings, fill in your email address, pop it in the box as you go out, look at the books and leaflets. But most of all, thank you to Marcus. So big hand, please, for Marcus Allen. Thank you.
Thank you.